Lanxi came to a strange fictional ancient place and became a 3-year-old baby. Calmly accepting the gift of fate, Lanxi chose to lie flat with salted fish. At the age of 5, Lanxi met a poor little cute child, and after a few years, he realized how little cute child had become a monk. But even if I become a little monk, how can I do it? I still want to obediently come to my bowl. Little monk, let's discuss and try to return to secular life. Is that okay? Lanxi hugged Zhan Chen from behind, who was focused on reciting scriptures, and played a serious prank. The rhythmic sound of wooden fish suddenly came to an end, and the air was filled with tranquility. Okay. It's okay if it's not possible, we can do this. What are you saying? The monk with clear eyebrows and eyes turned around, his eyes filled with a myriad of thoughts and emotions, leaving only a trace of helplessness in the end. Why do you think I'm here? Without golden fingers, it's not a top student. Weak in the early stage, growing stronger along the way. Women pursue men, and the male lead returns to secular life for the female lead. Keywords of the novel. Lanxi Crossing Chronicles without pop-ups, Lanxi Crossing Chronicles TXT Complete Collection Download, Lanxi Crossing Chronicles Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Shrinkage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Shrinkage. The cold water enveloped every inch of Lanxi's skin, and her gradually sour limbs and dull head left her with no energy to think anymore, leaving only one thought firmly in her mind. Can't stop, can't stop. On the shore, there was a clamor of voices. Hurry up, we're rescued. Give me a hand and pick up the child. Tao Tao. Help me, help me. After an unknown amount of time, Lanxi finally felt a relaxation in his arms, as if he had unloaded a heavy burden. The suppressed breath suddenly relaxed, and Lanxi exhausted his last bit of strength and slid heavily into the water. Someone noticed a scene and exclaimed in shock, "Hey, that girl hasn't come up yet. Give her a hand. It's broken, it must have lost its strength. Hasn't the rescuers arrived yet?" Amidst the commotion, a voice came from afar. Here, I can swim." The words behind are no longer audible, and the turbid water fills the mouth and nose of Lanxi. Are you going to die? In a daze, Lanxi realized. No, help me. Lanxi's lips closed slightly, and his words were almost silent, his consciousness sinking into a deep darkness. Candlelight sways, the bed curtain is slightly pulled up. The quiet inner room only had a few shallow breathing sounds, as if afraid of disturbing the sleeping little person on the bed. Through the thin silk lining of the inner room, a noble woman could be vaguely seen sitting on the main seat of the hall. She slowly stood up and walked towards an old man in front of the hall, followed by vague conversations. Thank you, Dr. Liang. Shier's fever has finally subsided. Lu Yunyao still felt lingering palpitations and thanked Dr. Liang again. Tonight, thank you for coming all night to lend a helping hand. Otherwise, it would have delayed the night, delayed the condition, and the consequences would have been unimaginable. Madam's words are heavy, the doctor is kind. This is my duty. Miss C will be fine once her fever subsides. After she wakes up later, she can drink a few more pills prepared by me. I should also say goodbye. The old man was very satisfied with receiving gratitude from the patient's family. He twisted his delicate grayish beard and couldn't help but give a few more words of advice. Only the fourth girl is still young, and after a trip, it is inevitable that she will suffer losses. She still needs to be taken care of carefully on a daily basis. I have written it down, please ask Dr. Liang to walk slowly. Lu Yunyao nodded lightly and then instructed the girl who was guarding quietly and lowered her head. Qin-Kei, take Dr. Liang out and bring the medicine. Yes, madam. Dr. Liang, please come this way. Lanxi, feeling exhausted all over, was too lazy to move his finger again and heard this conversation in a daze. Recalling the feeling of being submerged by sewage in the flood, Lanxi reflexively stepped down. Is Taotao's child okay? At that time, as the child was about to be washed away by the water, there were mostly elderly people in the community. Unfortunately, she happened to be the only young person around who could swim, so Lanxi had to go into the water and catch the child by herself. However, the flooded water is urgent and large, extremely turbid, and the swimming experience in Lanxi is not very rich. When they caught up with the child, the two had already been washed away by the flood. After trying their best to send the child ashore, she had no strength to climb up on her own. Lanxi was reminiscing about his condition before he fell into a coma when footsteps came from the bedside. How about Xie waking up? Lu Yunyao raised her eyes and asked the green luo guarding the bed. Madam Hui, it's not yet. Miss C has been sleeping since her fever subsided. It seems like she moved a bit just now, and she will wake up soon, said Luofu in a soft voice. Lu Yunyao sighed in disappointment and sat on the side of the bed, reaching out to gently brush the cheeks of the child on the bed. Lanxi. This voice is close to my ear, and it definitely doesn't sound like a TV drama. Startled sleepless, Lanxi finally struggled to open his tightly closed eyes. His dry eyelids quickly blinked twice, and then he was startled by the sight in front of him and widened his eyes. An antique wooden dental bed, a bed curtain embroidered with unfamiliar exquisite patterns, and a thin, silky quilt on the body. Turning his head to look at the surprised noblewoman and girl next to him, Lanxi realized later that something big had happened. Xie, don't be surprised, don't be surprised. Lanxi stared at her with round eyes and a frightened expression. Lu Yunyao quickly comforted her and said, the doctor has already shown you. Don't be afraid, my son is fine. Green Luo poured a cup of warm water and said, Miss C, you're thirsty after waking up. Do you want to drink some water? Lu Yunyao nodded in approval of her and gently picked up Lanxi with her own hands, helping her drape a thin blanket. Xie, do you want to drink water? Can I feed you water? Lanxi happened to have a dry throat, so he calmed down and nodded, snuggling stiffly in Lu Yunyao's arms. Lu Yunyao patiently placed the porcelain cup close to Lanxi's lips. After Lanxi had drunk half a cup, she gently lifted the cup and moved it away, showing that she had a lot of experience in taking care of children. You just recovered from your illness, you can't drink too much water. Lu Yunyao gently wiped the water stains on Lanxi's lips with a fragrant handkerchief. Lanxi dared not move recklessly. She, who already understood her current situation, was afraid of revealing her true identity and being discovered by the mother in front of her. Looking at her daughter, who looked listless and reserved, Lu Yunyao felt a pang of heartache. After all, her daughter still suffered. In the future, I won't dare to be too cold when sleeping in hot weather. Look at your illness, do you feel uncomfortable? Without knowing the cause and effect, Lanxi obediently nodded. And those two maids of yours, you didn't take good care of them. I punished them to be the sweeping maids in the Buddhist temple. Later, I'll find 2 more maids for you to use. Speaking of this, Lu Yunyao remembered Luo's recent performance and felt quite satisfied in her heart. My mother will leave the green apple for you again and make you an aunt by your side. With her watching over you, I can rest assured. After hearing this, Luo nodded slightly and said, I will definitely take good care of Miss Fourth. Madam, rest assured. Serving the lady by her side is more respected by servants, but if she can always be by her side, as the lady grows older, her future will also be indispensable. Lanxi didn't know how to deal with it, so he pretended to be tired and tilted his head to bury it in this mother's arms. Sure enough, Lu Yunyao saw the situation and thought that Lanxi was not feeling well. She instructed the maid to take care of Miss C and sleep, and then left shortly after. Amidst the layers of gauze, Lanxi slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air under the blanket, afraid to disturb the green luo guarding the bedside, and didn't dare to make too much noise. It seems that my soul has come to ancient times and dressed as the 4th young lady who died of illness in this household. Now this small body looks only 3 or 4 years old at most, and there is no memory of the original body in my mind, nor do I know which generation this is. My body was feverish in the middle of the night, after all, I was young. Lanxi stroked his thoughts and unconsciously fell asleep. When Lanxi woke up, it was already noon the next day. To be honest, she was actually awakened from hunger. Before she could move, Green Luo had already rolled up the bed curtain and waited on Lanxi to dress and wash. Lanxi let her do whatever she wanted, but she wouldn't wear it herself. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Naming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Naming. Fortunately, she is now a milk doll who needs help with everything and her personality is still being developed. It is not easy for her to help others that she has the opportunity to gradually adapt to this unfamiliar environment. After washing up, Luo beckoned to set up a meal and explained to Lanxi that his wife had instructed him to have dinner in his own courtyard today, so as not to get sick again. When Lanxi had just woken up, Luo had already sent someone to inform her mother. It was estimated that the person would arrive when she had finished her meal. Luo was originally worried that Miss C would wake up and not be able to see her wife, which would make her anxious. However, she didn't expect Lanxi to show any signs of looking for a mother at all, and she happily buried herself in the kitchen. Luo scooped up a small piece of egg soup and put it into Lanxi's small mouth, sighing silently. After Miss C fell ill, she became much quieter. Because Lanxi is much more obedient in eating than before, and eats whatever is given, this meal was able to end earlier. After the meal was taken down, Green Luo called in 2 little girls who were about 6 or 7 years old. At this age, he is just right, able to understand people's expressions, and can also do some light tasks. No matter how big you are, you can't play with the young master. No matter how small you are, you won't be able to serve people. It's hard to say whether you're here to work or become a young lady. Miss, this is the new maid that Madam has chosen for you. She has come to recognize someone in front of you. If you have anything to do, just instruct them. With the introduction of Luo, the 2 little girls bent down and knelt down. I've seen Miss 4. Lanxi was shocked. She sacrificed her life to save the 7-year-old Tao Tao, but when she came to ancient times, several children of such age were actually used as servants for her. Lanxi is very uncomfortable and even feels a bit guilty. From now on, she will live in such an environment for her whole life. Lanxi asked herself, she is just an ordinary person who cannot be remembered and has no golden fingers. Apart from trying to save her life, what else can she do? Luo looked at Lanxi in a daze and didn't say a word. She thought it was because she was not fully recovered and had no energy, so she spoke out as a reminder. Miss C, do you want to give her a name? Lanxi felt a bit helpless. She looked not as high as the table now, and even a few steps might cause her to fall over. As a result, they each solemnly respected her as their master. Don't they really think this is strange? Lanxi looked at the 2 little girls buried on the ground, their throats tingling slightly. What were your names before? The 2 little girls hesitated for a moment, and the girl in a pink bun replied softly, I don't have a name, and my family is all called Sanyoer. Maid Xiangcao, I heard it was called that by a deceased mother. Another person followed suit. That's right. In ancient times, those who worked as slaves were either servants of the world or sold themselves as slaves. Ordinary people would not name their daughters, and even if they did, they were just casually called flowers and plants. Fortunately, she dressed up as a wealthy girl. Miss, from now on, they will serve you by your side. You can no longer use those inappropriate names. Why don't you start with 2 and use them? If you are not satisfied in the future, you can still make changes. Do you want to make changes if you're not satisfied? Can humans be like things? Forget it. In the future, your name is Bai Shui. Lanxi signaled to the girl in pink clothes. Bai Shui kowtowed and thanked. Bai Shui thanks Miss C for giving her a name. Lanxi nodded and looked at another little girl. You. Lanxi was in a difficult situation at the moment, and the vanilla was taken by her deceased mother. It was not good for her to change it so casually. Lanxi rolled his eyes and pulled off Luo's sleeve, asking, "Luo, do you know what nice names vanilla has?" Luo was taken aback for a moment, and then on second thought, she understood what Miss Forth was thinking, and her heart was even softer. "Miss C, do you really remember a few of them? Look. Baiji, Du Roa, Jiangli, and Qiu Lan, did Miss C have any preferences?" Lanxi pursed his lips and said, "I think Baiji sounds better, Xiangcao. You'll be called Baiji in the future." The little girl was originally a bit flustered by Lanxi's hesitation, and realized that Miss C was caring for her mother's feelings towards her. She naturally felt extremely grateful in her heart. Maid Baiji thanked Miss C for giving her a name. A light smile came from outside the hall, and it was her elegant and gorgeous beauty. "My son is intelligent, it seems that he doesn't need his mother's help anymore." Originally, she had heard it from outside. Lanxi's face was a bit feverish, and she was also a bit scared. Fortunately, she didn't learn how to randomly name time-traveling dramas. White snow is white snow, which can barely fit a child's perception. As for Baiji, it was taken with the help of a green lily, so it shouldn't be a problem. "Mother," Lanxi called out softly to Lu Yunyao, as long as it wasn't for calling her mom, she didn't feel too uncomfortable. Leaving aside everything else, the most important thing about having such a beautiful and gentle mother is that she is still wealthy. Lanxi is still very happy. Just as the face, which was poor, tired, and wrinkled, flashed past in her mind, she felt like she was being choked off, sour and unbearable. "Mom, she must be very sad now." Lanxi lowered her head and closed her eyes, holding back her tears. Now is not the time to think about these things. Living well will not disappoint her good fortune of resurrection from death. Take them down and teach them for a few days, study the rules well, and then come back. Lu Yunyao signaled to Luo to take the two little girls down, then turned around and picked up Lanxi from the round stool to tease. "What are you doing with your head down? Are you ashamed? Don't laugh at me." Lanxi buried himself in her chest and acted coquettishly, making Lu Yunyao even more unable to resist laughter. Lanxi could only helplessly shift the topic. "Mom, did I give them a good name?" "Okay." Lu Yunyao straightened the disheveled forehead of Lanxi. "Although my son is young, he handles things properly and has some of my style." Lu Yunyao coaxed her, but there was a smug expression on her eyebrows. "Green Luo helped me, but I'm not young anymore. I'm already 3 or 4 years old." Lanxi reached out his palm, his fingers lovingly hooked, and he looked up with a serious rebuttal. Lanxi with her toes tightly fastened. In order to get more information, she also fought hard. Lu Yunyao covered her mouth with a handkerchief and was overjoyed. "Sheer, are you sleeping soundly? Why are you 5 years old? You are clearly 6 years old." The voice of the youth ranges from far to near. As soon as the words fell, a young boy dressed in a red brocade robe, about 8 or 9 years old, appeared at the door. He opened a pair of bright and cunning phoenix eyes, grinned, and walked briskly into the hall. 6 years old. He really thinks she's stupid, right? With just her 3 heads, she's hanging at the age of 4. Don't listen to this kid's nonsense. You're just over 3 years old, and even Sheer is fooling you. It seems that the stinky kid is itching. Before Lanxi could refute, a gentle and watery smile followed closely behind. She looked towards the door and saw a graceful figure approaching. The girl is only 11 or 12 years old, and she has not yet grown up. Her eyebrows are hard to conceal her enchanting beauty. Her apricot eyes are as bright as stars, her lips are crimson and delicate, her skin is fair and flawless, and when she enters, every move shows elegance. What a stunning and refined girl. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Drinking Medicine. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 3 Drinking Medicine. After the girl walked into the house, a dignified young man came in from behind. He looked at only 14 or 15 years old, tall and straight, with a jade crown on his face. A pair of phoenix eyes were bright and lively, somewhat similar to the young boy in red robes in front of him, but narrower than him. His eyes were less lively but more wise. At this moment, with a smile on his face, he calmly stepped into the room. Seeing a few children, Lu Yunyao was obviously also very happy. Monkey splashing, you're making fun of your sister again. Your second sister is right, you just want to tighten your skin. Little boy, he should be the third brother, raising his eyebrows upon hearing this. Mother, you have wronged me. I heard that my younger sister had a fever last night, and I came to see her as soon as she woke up today. Can you still treat her badly? Speaking, he blinked at Lanxi again. Yeah, sheer. Lanxi only smiled and remained silent. How could she know how to get along with a few people on a daily basis? Speak less and do less, and don't fall into the trap. Mother, is Sheer feeling better? Second sister looked at the obedient and smiling little baby in Lu Yunyao's arms. Speaking, he reached out a scallion white plain hand and hooked up Lanxi's meaty little finger, smiling with curved eyebrows and eyes. Why doesn't Sheer bother with Big Brother today? On weekdays, when Big Brother comes, you never leave him for a moment. Ah, this. Turns out this little girl is still a brother control. Lanxi, who is pasting with the beauty sister, thinks a little. However, since Sister Beauty said so, Lanxi obediently looked at the big brother who was quietly watching everyone on the side, showing a smiling face. Upon receiving the smiling face of the younger sister, the older brother's slightly calm eyebrows and eyes couldn't help but stretch a bit, and then he looked at the appearance of a young man. I heard that Sheer was really dangerous last night, so I had to invite the imperial physician from the palace to turn the situation around. Dr. Liang has excellent medical skills, so Sheer needs to take medicine obediently and get better soon. Undoubtedly, he is the oldest elder brother. After carefully understanding the details of last night, the adult took it seriously. Lu Yunyao also nodded, and after being reminded, she turned to ask the maid if the medicine was ready. Coincidentally, the kitchen calculated that Miss C should have just finished her meal and sent someone to bring the medicine, which happened to be taken now. I'll do it. The second sister took the medicine bowl, scooped up a spoonful with a spoon, gently blew it to cool, and then brought it to the younger sister's lips. Lanxi hesitated slightly, but obediently lowered her head and opened her mouth. Unexpectedly, as soon as the medicinal soup was imported, she was so bitter that her mouth was about to vomit. Lu Yunyao was already prepared and twisted a pitted plum preserves into Lanxi's mouth. Don't spit. Sheer, swallow it obediently. You can only recover after drinking the medicine. Lanxi was not really ignorant, obediently swallowing all the medicine. However, when she saw the big bowl held by the beautiful sister in her hand, she, who had nothing to love, had a tight bun face, and the third brother couldn't help but laugh at it. He was not very old and childish, so he couldn't help but gloat and tease his second sister, so he smiled faintly, with his heart written in his bright eyes. Lanxi is too lazy to take care of the bare child, just troubled by this medicine. If you really drink it spoonful by spoonful, isn't it a slow knife that cuts through the flesh and torments yourself? Long pain is better than short pain, so Lanxi immediately chose to play coquettish with Lu Yunyao. Mother, it's too bitter to drink like this. I don't want to drink now. When it's not too hot, Sheer can drink together again. This. Lu Yunyao also knew that the taste was not pleasant, and it was indeed difficult to handle, let alone a little dull. Lanxi saw that the attitude of the beautiful woman had loosened, and immediately frowned and turned to plead with the second sister who was holding the medicine. Sister. The second sister bit her lip, and although she didn't speak, she gently put the spoon back into the medicine bowl, her eyes slightly turning, avoiding the disapproving gaze of her mother. Lanxi is delighted and effective. Then he looked at the big brother on the side. Big brother. Is that okay? The big brother couldn't resist her attack and looked at his mother pleadingly. Mother, I don't know how long it will take to drink like this. Why don't we let it go for now? It won't hurt if we delay our work for a while. Shia has always been close to him, but today there is much estrangement. Now that she begged him so pitifully, he couldn't bear it. You all feel sorry for her, but I am cruel, right? Lu Yunyao gave Song Lanzhang a displeased glance. Lanxi saw the situation and quickly comforted her first. Mom, you're the best. Shia knows that Mom just wants me to get better soon. Upon hearing these words, Lu Yunyao's expression moved and she gently stroked the hair of the little person in her arms. Shia has indeed suffered a lot this time. My mother would rather you make my head ache every day than let you suffer this kind of pain. Feeling the motherly kindness of the beautiful woman, Lanxi felt very warm in her heart. I didn't expect that she would meet such a kind mother in her 2 lifetimes. Her modern mother is not a gentle and watery personality, but she also shows great care and affection for her. Unfortunately, she could only pray for a chance to repay this kindness of childbirth in her next life. In this lifetime, if this mother can always be good to her, Lanxi will sincerely treat her as a filial mother. Thinking this way, she reached out and hugged Lu Yunyao. As for her original body, forgive her selfishness, for the sake of her own life, she really can't tell the truth to the outside world. Mom, I named Baiji. Did you help me choose my name? Second sister couldn't help but laugh and lightly tapped Lanxi's forehead with her fingers. Why did you even forget about this? Your real name is Song Lanxi, it was taken by your father himself. Lanxi was taken aback. Song Lanxi. Is it her Lanxi? Is it possible that there is a destiny in the dark, and she has an inexplicable fate with this little baby? Watching Lanxi blink his confused round eyes, the big brother couldn't help but soften his heart. Not bad, the word Lanxi comes from 3 days of peach blossom rain in Lanxi, carp come to the stall in the middle of the night. This spring rain and interesting night scene of fish swimming in Lanxi perfectly match your naturally lively nature. The eldest brother's voice was gentle and steady, calmly citing classics to tell the special meaning behind her name. Lanxi felt a soft and indescribable feeling in her heart, sincerely grateful to heaven. Even if she went to another world alone, she still had so many good family members for her. I like this name. Lanxi was very happy. What's so joyful about this? It's really just a child. Third brother opened his mouth and laughed at her. Lanxi ignored him, but this bear child loves to tease her, becoming more and more rational. Seeing that Lanxi didn't speak, the third brother's interest in talking and laughing didn't diminish. He teased the family for a while, and Lanxi also learned the names of several brothers and sisters from the chat. Several siblings of the Song family are all named after Lan. She is Lanxi. The eldest brother calls Lan Zhang, the second sister calls Lan Shu, and the third brother calls Lan Jiu. However, according to his own boasting, the brothers he met outside all saluted him as Jioga. What kind of 8th and 9th brother? Stop fooling around outside. If your dad finds out, you'll have a good time. Lu Yunyao scolded him. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Background. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Background. Song Lanjiao was not angry either, but instead leaned over to pinch Lu Yunyao's shoulders and beat her back, coaxing her with a smile between her eyebrows and eyes. The intelligence of Lanxi has also been collected almost, except for this man who is in charge of the Song family and the cheap father of Lanxi. Mother, third brother just laughed at me. Let dad come and deal with him. Lanxi held his little head high and coquettishly treated Lu Yunyao. Dad is still handling official affairs at the official office and can only come back at night. Song Lanxu smiled gently at her younger sister. Why didn't my dad come to see me yesterday? Lu Yunyao explained to her in a warm voice, why didn't you look? He went there in the morning, and when he came back, you slept over again. If you want to see him, you can pester him later when he comes. Dad belongs to his mother, I won't bother him. Lanxi smiled and casually answered, as long as it wasn't that she didn't hurt. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expressions were eerie, with each corner of their mouth holding back a smile. Cough. Cough. Song Lanzhang covered his sleeves and coughed lightly. He glanced at her with a smile in his eyes, and Lanxi immediately turned around. Speak of the devil. Behind Lanxi, Song Qinyan's handsome face could no longer maintain his gentle demeanor. He smiled so hard that he couldn't see his teeth or eyes. He proudly raised his eyebrows at his wife and was so embarrassed that Lu Yunyao spat at him in a low voice. Shir is right, isn't daddy your mother's? No one is allowed to compete with her. As soon as Song Qinyan came in, he took his precious little daughter from his wife's hand and held her firmly in his arms. Lanxi felt slightly guilty, but the corners of his mouth curved and he bulged his pure and clear eyes, pretending to be confused. Why are you still talking nonsense like Shir? The beautiful woman became angry with embarrassment and just wanted to get through this awkward moment quickly. Where's Shir's medicine? It should have stopped burning long ago. It should have cooled down after a while. Bring it to her to drink quickly. Lanxi was dumbfounded. She almost forgot about it, but she wasn't really a child either. For the sake of her health, she had to drink this medicine. After drinking the medicine, Song Qinyan took care of her health for a while and promised to take her fishing when she recovered. Lanxi suspected that Song Qinyan was using her as an excuse, but in fact, he wanted to go fishing because Lan Jiu beside him had a face full of words like, I knew. Song Qinyan was a fourth-rank official. If he were in another city, this official position would already be very good, but if he were in the capital, which was filled with third and fourth-rank officials, it would be a bit lacking. Lu Yunyao's maternal family has some heritage, with a family of imperial physicians. Her father, Lu Hongji, was also the head of the case at the imperial hospital. But that was once. Since childhood, Lu Yunyao has not been interested in medical skills. Although Lu Hongji is regretful, he has no choice but to treat this only beloved daughter. After Lu Hongji returned home from his old age, in addition to some old friends, there were also a few people in Beijing who recognized Lu Yunyao as such. Fortunately, she also had a clan brother named Lu Xinwei, who was now the captain of the Imperial Guard and was in charge of public security in the urban area of the capital. He was on guard and helped Song Qinyan, and his official career was not too difficult. When the Song family spends their days together, Lu Yunyao is a strict mother, so Song Qinyan is a kind father. Taking advantage of his free time now, he cares about his children's academic work one by one. The two of Lan Zhang and Lan Shu, who have extremely high self-demands, naturally don't have to worry. Only Lan Jiu, when Song Qinyan began asking Song Lan Zhang, couldn't sit still under his buttocks. But Song Qinyan was so bad that he deliberately didn't ask him. After asking his eldest son and second daughter, he looked at Song Lanjiu who had been sitting in acupuncture and moxibustion for a long time. Jiur, let me see. Is it possible that you have sores under your buttocks? Why don't you call Dr. Liang to take a look? Lu Hongji once worked at the same hospital as medical officer Liang, who also showed some care to the Song government. Last night, he came to treat Lanxi in the middle of the night. Lanxi was amused and laughed, making this little brat laugh at her earlier. Feng Shui took turns, but now it's his turn. Fortunately, Lan Jiu loves martial arts but not literature, and is prone to laziness in reading. However, he is still intelligent and full of energy. Despite stumbling, Song Qinyan still managed to answer all his questions. Lanxi didn't really want to see him embarrass himself. At the moment he finished speaking, he gave him very face-saving applause and cheers, which actually made him feel a bit embarrassed. After all, Lanxi was still ill and a 3-year-old child. After everyone finished speaking, Lu Yunyao coaxed her to sleep. In fact, Lanxi, who had just consumed a large bowl of medicinal soup, was not sleepy at all, and even a bit tired. However, thinking that the longer she stayed, the more likely it was to be exposed, and the longer the day came, she obediently followed the green luo to the inner room. Half a month later, Lanxi drank the last dose of soup under the service of luo. She had already finished the medicine she prescribed when she was sick, but as a result, Lu Yunyao brought back some tonic medicine, causing her to suffer for a long time. Luo removed the bowl with some medicine residue and poured another cup of warm water to rinse Lanxi's mouth. "It's so bitter." Lanxi frowned with pain on his face. "Miss, do you want some dried fruits?" Green Luo brought a small plate of dried plums and paused, afraid that Lanxi would be greedy, adding a few more words. "However, Madam has instructed that one should not eat too much at a time as it can easily damage one's teeth." Lanxi nodded and thought for a moment, then took out 2 and put them in his hand. The rest, along with the small plate, was pushed to Luo. Bai Shui and Bai Ji are still learning the rules from the big girl. "You can take them and eat them. Thanks to Mrs. Concern." Green Luo thanked Bai Ji and her 2 companions. "Those 2 girls are doing well now. They can learn and come back to play with you in the next few days. Miss, at a young age, can still act as a substitute for the newcomer who just arrived. In the future, she will definitely be a kind and lenient master." Because Lanxi has been here for half a month now, and his hair has grown a lot. Yesterday before going to bed, Lu Yunyao instructed Luo to take Lanxi to the main courtyard to find her at noon. She wanted to personally cut Lanxi's hair. Lanxi. Did she remember wrong? Isn't ancient hair very important? Can it be cut casually? Lanxi obviously had a wrong idea. If he didn't cut his hair, would he want to keep it for a lifetime? If ancient people never cut their hair, wouldn't everyone have to sweep the floor with their long hair? Lanxi didn't hesitate too much, and after enjoying it for a while, he was carried by Luo all the way to the main courtyard. Before she could enter the door, she heard constant laughter in the yard. Lanxi suddenly gained momentum and slid down from Luo's arms, rushing into the room to embrace Lu Yunyao's leg. "Mom, why are you so happy?" "Of course I'm happy, Sheer. I received an invitation from the Princess Chang's mansion, inviting us to go to the Lotus appreciation banquet together." Lu Yunyao waved a lightly gilded red paper in her hand, her face full of spring light. "Princess Chang's mansion. It sounds very impressive. No wonder her mother is so happy, it represents the elevation of their family's status in the capital. And thanks to her father's great achievements in investigating corrupt officials this time. In recent years, the Jingyan dynasty has had smooth weather and a peaceful country. However, the taxes received by the court have been decreasing year by year. The emperor noticed that the appetite of the great rats in the court was growing, so he sent his father to secretly investigate. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Study. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Study. With the support of the emperor, Song Qinyan did not spare any effort and ultimately led a large number of officials to dismount. He himself was also promoted to 2 levels and became a 3rd-rank minister, the minister of Dali Temple. This is a 3rd-rank official. Her father finally has the qualification to enter the temple and face the Holy Spirit when going to court. Looking at her mother's overjoyed expression, Lanxi also became happy. "Great, I'm going to tell Big Brother about them." Lu Yunyao scraped her nose off the Lanxi River and sneered, "You didn't mean to tell your big brother. You thought your mother didn't know, but you clearly wanted to play around. Now you're still thinking about the front yard. Mom, please, let me go. I'll just take a look on the way and promise to come back soon." "You skinny monkey, have you forgotten why you came here? You didn't cut your hair." Lanxi hesitated, knowing that if she really went to the front yard, she would definitely come back so soon. Do you want to cut it before I come back? Do you believe that? Lu Yunyao glanced at her. Hee hee. Lanxi played tricks and turned around, running outside the house. Lu Yunyao waved her hand and called out to the girls, follow up quickly and take good care of them. This child. Lu Yunyao looked at the small figure of Lanxi running away and shook her head with a smile. Former courtyard school. At the front of the desk sat a scholar in a long robe, with Song Lanzhang standing aside to polish his ink. The gentleman nodded and put down his brush. Your article has a good intention, a brilliant literary talent, and a sincere tone in your words, the gentleman praised. Song Lanzhang was not proud, lowered his eyes and listened respectfully. Sure enough, the disciple humbly stroked his long beard to the satisfaction of the teacher, saying, however, Zhang Er, you lack practical experience and your insights in this area are still not deep. Song Lanzhang blushed and said, I'm ashamed. You don't have to underestimate yourself. With such literary talent at this age, Zhang Er, you don't consider yourself depriving your father's reputation. Compared to what my father had thought before, my disciple is still far behind. Big brother. Song Lanzhang, who was discussing with the teacher, faintly heard the call of his younger sister Lanxi. Song Lanzhang shook his head. How could there be a little girl's voice in the front yard? It seems that the little girl has been making a fuss lately, causing him to have hallucinations. Big brother, where are you? Lanxi shouted from a distance. This. Song Lanzhang was surprised. But Miss Fourth is here. Mr. Long Pao turned back. Song Lanzhang apologized and said, my little sister is young and mischievous. I think she must have come to the front yard to find me. I remember Miss C just turned 3 years old this year. Mr. Cheng recalled the situation in the Song mansion. Exactly, my little sister just turned 3 years old in Chunri. Still a little doll. Well, don't worry about your article for now, just review it day by day. Since Miss Fourth is here, then you can go and take a look. Mr. Cheng waved his hand and sorted out the manuscripts on the table. Song Lanzhang took his leave and as soon as he left the room, he saw a dwarf running towards him with 2 short legs flapping. Song Lanzhang skillfully bent down, picked up the little figure, and carefully wiped away the thin sweat from Lanxi's running with his sleeves. Why did you come to the front yard by yourself? Have you told your mother? I've said it, it came from my mother. Lanxi looked up and wiped his sweat, then asked, Big brother, where are second sister and third brother? Aren't you attending classes together? We are not together. I have finished learning the commonly used books and now I am studying with my teacher. Oh, it's just like senior students don't have the same class as junior students. Lanxi automatically converts it into an understandable explanation. Let's go find them quickly, Lanxi couldn't wait. Don't worry, you haven't told me why you suddenly came here today. Lanxi is too lazy to keep up with the situation. My mother just received an invitation from the princess's mansion, inviting us to the Lotus banquet. It turns out that my father's good fortune and respect are indeed good things. But you shouldn't disturb Shuer and her because of it. Lanxi doesn't insist on seeing them now, she just wants to find an excuse to visit the front yard. Since Song Lanzhang said so, Lanxi took the opportunity to let him take her to visit the study. Song Lanzhang, who had read poetry and books extensively, not only exuded a sense of elegance but also a sense of pride and honor as a noble young master. The layout of this study, just like his people, is simple yet reveals an unintentional elegance. As soon as someone steps in, they can see several freehand landscape paintings hanging on the walls of the study. The bookshelf next to the scroll is neatly and orderly filled with various books. In front of the bookshelf is a rosewood desk, with a stack of white paper stacked on it. A row of various colored brushes hang over the bookshelf, and an inkstone is placed in the upper right corner. The book bucket next to the desk is filled with Song Lanzhang's usual paintings. Looking at the other end of the study by the window, there was a low bed in front of it. In the middle of the bed was a small table about half a foot wide, with a wooden chessboard on top. Lanxi curiously walked up to the desk, where there was still an unopened piece of writing. She doesn't quite understand words, but she can also see its excellence. Big brother, your handwriting is really good. Although Song Lanzhang was used to being praised, now when he is admired by his younger sister, he is also very happy in his heart. Xi'er also knows what good characters are. Lanxi was not convinced, but she couldn't tell the truth and could only play tricks. Of course I know. It feels comfortable to look at, it's just a good word. Song Lanzhang was taken aback, pondered for a moment, and then tapped his forehead in agreement. Your words are not without reason. Some good words can indeed make viewers' hearts and minds happy. However, not all situations are like this, the meaning in the work is closely related to the mood of the calligrapher. Song Lanzhang recalled his childhood scenes and occasionally showed respect for his father on his face. When I was 4 years old, my father personally enlightened me, and I have been practicing calligraphy for nearly 10 years, but I still cannot reach 12/10 of my father's skills. When you see your father's handwriting, you will know what it means to be as graceful as a floating cloud and as delicate as a startled swan. Speaking of which, Song Lanzhang looked at Lanxi with his small head tilted aside, and a brilliant idea came to his mind. Xi'er, you will also be enlightened in 2 more years. If your father is not available at that time, why not let your elder brother teach you how to write? Lanxi is busy refusing, she doesn't want to start school at such a young age. Upon hearing this, although Song Lanzhang was slightly disappointed, she did not force herself. Lanxi was afraid that Song Lanzhang would teach her how to write, so she changed the topic. Big brother, why don't we play chess? Can you teach me how to play chess? Without revealing the thoughtfulness of Lanxi, Song Lanzhang readily agreed and took Lanxi's small hand to sit down on the low couch. Since you want to play chess, you must first learn the rules. Song Lanzhang explained the rules in detail sentence by sentence. Lanxi had never played Go before, and now he is a true beginner, so he listens attentively with his small face up. After Song Lanzhang repeated it twice, Lanxi said he understood and they could start trying now. Song Lanzhang's fingertips paused while playing chess, feeling a deep emotion in his heart. Xi'er is very intelligent at a young age. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Gifts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Gifts. The two of them were playing chess here. After finishing school, Song Lanxiu and Song Lanjiu learned that their little sister Lanxi had come to the front yard and eagerly came to the study to find them. As soon as I entered the door, I found 2 people, one big and one small, sitting opposite each other playing chess. The siblings looked at each other in surprise. Lanxi is so small, how could he play chess with big brother? I didn't expect our family Xi'er to be quite smart. Song Lanjiu leaned in front of the chess game and exclaimed in surprise. Lanxi had just been eaten a piece of chess pieces by Song Lanzhang, and he was very busy. When he saw his second sister and third brother coming, he quickly played tricks and left the chess pieces. Second sister, third brother, have you finished school? Song Lanxiu wiped the fine sweat that came out of contemplation on Lanxi's head. Just finished school, why did you come to the front yard? Mom didn't send anyone to catch you back. She studies with her husband in the front yard with a few brothers every day, but Xi'er is still young. How could her mother agree for her to come over? In fact, most daughters of families hire female teachers to teach their talents in the backyard. But in the Song family, Song Qinyan loved her very much, so she was enlightened by her father like her brothers from a young age and studied with them. There is a precedent for Song Lanxiu, and everyone has agreed that Lanxi will also go to the front yard to study together in the future. Lanxi didn't know that there were only a few years left for her free and happy life. I found an excuse to come here to play, even my mother knows. Lanxi had no patience to play chess anymore and maliciously pulled Song Lanjiu to his seat. Lan Jiu was afraid that this short person would fall and dare not struggle. He reluctantly glanced at Lan Shi and half pushed and half picked up the remaining game on the table. Lan Jiu, who was unlucky, was repeatedly abused by his elder brother and secretly vowed never to play chess with him again. At dinner, the Lanshi family gathered in the main hall of the courtyard, and Song Qinyan instructed the servants to escort the gifts. Most of these gifts were copied from corrupt officials when he was handling the case. The emperor was generous and directly distributed a portion to the meritorious officials, including Song Qinyan. Having gained benefits, Song Qinyan wanted to share with his family and picked out some to make them happy. Lu Yunyao received a box of trendy jewelry with a grand and luxurious style, which perfectly matched her graceful temperament like a peony. Song Lanzhang got a high-quality ink stick. He didn't love mundane things, but he had a fondness for them. Song Lanshu received a set of facial masks similar to Lu Yunyao, but her outfit was delicate and exquisite, suitable for young women. At that time, she and her mother will go out with jewelry, and outsiders can tell at a glance that they are mother and daughter. Song Lanshu received such a satisfactory gift and happily snuggled up with her mother to talk. Song Lanjiu enjoys martial arts. Every morning, he follows the martial arts master Fu to practice martial arts with his elder brother, and every 10 days, he even sets aside a day to go out of the city to ride horses and shoot arrows. Song Lanzhang only practiced martial arts to strengthen his body and familiarize himself with the 6 arts of the gentleman, but Song Lanjiu truly enjoyed the feeling of wielding knives and guns, and often dreamed of one day being able to go to battle and kill enemies. As an old man, Song Qinyan certainly knew his son's hobbies, but Song Lanjiu was not very old and was afraid of hurting himself. He didn't give a knife or gun, but instead gave him a python skin whip. Song Lanjiu was overjoyed. After thanking her father, she couldn't wait to play outside the yard. Finally, it was Lanshi's turn. She eagerly grabbed Song Qinyan and stared at the gift box with sparkling eyes, motionless. I hope her father can send more gold and silver treasures to her like he did to her mother and second sister later. Song Qinyan picked up Lanshi and proudly invited her for credit. Don't worry, Shir. Your gifts were all carefully chosen by me, especially the one prepared for you. I have put in a lot of effort for my father. Shir, you will definitely like them. Speaking, he asked someone to open the exclusive gift box he gave to Lanshi. Lanshi was excited and put in a lot of effort. Are they some rare treasures? Her father is also too kind to her. Here. This is a calligraphy book that my father took 3 months to write during his busy schedule. I'm giving it to you. Song Qinyan's beautiful beard curled up with joy, and one could imagine how her daughter could express her gratitude to her in ecstasy. Lanshi, whose smile gradually faded, said, Dad, are you a devil? Song Qinyan looked at Lanshi's expression with great confusion, which was completely beyond his expectations. He thought Lanshi was still young and did not understand the preciousness of the calligraphy book he had personally written, so he quickly added it. Shir, don't be fooled by your brother's expensive gifts. This is a calligraphy book written by your father himself for you, even your older brother didn't have it back then. Oh, thank you. Lanshi politely thanked him, wanting to cry without tears. She had already felt the deep and earnest expectation from her father. Song Lanzhang couldn't help but laugh and explain to everyone. After visiting the study in Lanshi, Song Lanzhang occasionally suggested teaching her how to write while playing chess. Lanshi was so annoyed that he asked his third brother to play chess on her behalf. Speaking of which, it was also my fault to force her too much to learn Chinese characters, which led to Shir's rebellious heart. Song Lanzhang didn't expect such a result, and he couldn't help but laugh or cry about it. Song Qinyan was amused and threw the Lanshi river upwards fiercely before catching it, laughing heartily. How could this be so good? My Shir doesn't love reading, isn't it that I won't be able to recognize a single character in the future? Lanshi rolled her eyes in her heart. Even if she didn't study, she would definitely not become illiterate. She has been secretly reading ancient Chinese recently, right? Lanxi felt helpless when Song Qinyan teased her like a child. But being thrown away, she was deeply immersed in this children's activity. Screaming and letting her father throw him higher, the yard was filled with the laughter and joy of the whole family. After the strong rise of Song Qinyan, he could also be considered a well-known new rich in the capital. Those who were optimistic about him posted invitations to the Song government for a banquet. The relationships between various factions in the capital were complex, and it was not good to offend anyone. Helpless, Song Qinyan could only politely refuse the invitations one by one, claiming to be sick. However, Lu Yunyao had no reason to refuse the various banquets held by the housewives. After being busy for half a month, she was really tired and sick. Song Qinyan was displeased and forcibly prevented her from spending any more time attending these annoying and useless banquets. Unfortunately, Lu Yunyao only rested for half a month. Just as she announced her recovery, various posts flooded in. There is no way, who can make the current holy family of Song Qinyan strong. Helpless, Lu Yunyao picked and chose only the largest Lotus appreciation banquet. Most people who want to see her will appear at this banquet, which saves a lot of trouble. However, none of these banquets have the capacity of Lanxi to make a fuss. She is just a little nanny, and it is inconvenient to travel. She also has to worry about catching a cold in the breeze, and even if she and Lu Yunyao are worn out, it is useless. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Attending Banquets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Attending banquets. Time passed by in a flash, and half a month later, it was the day when the Lotus banquet was scheduled. Song Lanxu, dressed in a charming way, walked into the main hall of the courtyard. In front of the main seat, Lu Yunyao was also dressed in new clothes, with a pearl hairpin on her head and exquisite makeup. She was ordering her servants to set up a carriage in an orderly manner. Lanxi was held in the arms of Luo. Although he also put on his newly made clothes, his eyes were filled with tears, and he pouted as he watched his family leave the door and board the carriage to the banquet. Lanxi didn't really cry, afraid that her mother would be worried, but her heart was really depressed. Over the past half-month, Lu Yunyao has attended multiple banquets, whether it's her older brother and sister, or her third brother, Lanjiao, who is still a young child. She stayed at home from start to finish and never left the house. Lanxi used to think that little nannies were good, so they ate and slept. Now it seems that freedom is really limited, and it would be better to have more autonomy. Lanxi looked dejected, and Lu Yunyao sighed as she lowered the curtain of the car window. Although she didn't bring Lanxi before, she always had a brother and sister to accompany her at home. Today, it's considered a family outing, leaving her alone at home. She really can't rest assured. The Lotus banquet was arranged at a village in the suburbs of Beijing. When the Song Qinyan family arrived, the entrance was already filled with carriages. In the year of Song Qinyan, when he dismounted, a servant who was guarding him cleverly stepped forward and saluted, saying, "But the Qing of Dali Temple, Mr. Song, and his family." "Exactly. Mr. Song, I have been waiting for you for a long time. Everyone, please come this way." The servant beckoned the people to place their carriages and horses, and summoned a servant to deliver messages to the village. He himself led the Song Qinyan family inside. After entering Zhuangzi, I soon arrived at my destination today, a large lake covering an area of over 10 acres, with almost half of the lake covered in lotus flowers. It is now the season for lotus flowers to bloom, but as June approaches, the lotus flowers in the lake are already bustling and competing to bloom, standing tall and graceful, dancing lightly in the wind, making people feel relaxed and happy. "This scenery is quite beautiful," praised Song Qinyan. Lu Yunyao smiled and nodded, showing more interest in this trip. "Madam, if those hornets are too annoying, you don't need to pay attention to them. Find a good place to appreciate the scenery, and after the banquet ends, we'll go home." Song Qinyan was worried that his wife would be burdened and kept busy explaining things. Song Qinyan had self-awareness. Although he had been in high demand recently, his foundation was weak. With his qualifications, the eldest princess would not deliberately go to see his wife and daughter. At this banquet, those who can't afford to offend don't look up to them, and those who can look up to them don't have much to fear. Lu Yunyao chuckled. Her husband actually called those noble ladies with high airs wasps. I don't know how those ladies who love to pretend feel. Sure, if you're with your mother, just do as I just said, there's no need to worry. Just this lotus feast is set by the water's edge. You too should be more careful not to be too close to the lake, or be careful of being ambushed by villains. Throughout history, there have always been people at banquets who are malicious and often engage in various bizarre events. Although Song Qinyan was a man, he had heard of many of them. Song Lanxi has always been kind-hearted, and of course she understands the meaning behind it. She nodded obediently. Zhang Jiu, come with me to the banquet at the male guest's place, just follow me at all times. Let's go. At this point, the family divided their troops into two routes. In fact, it's not a pity that Lanxi won't go to this banquet. She doesn't know how boring the situation of Lu Yunyao and the others is at this time. At this moment, the mother and daughter at the banquet looked at each other helplessly and sat in their seats, suffering and enduring. Lu Yunyao is a qualified lady, but she is not keen on socializing, let alone being the center of attention in everyone's eyes. She, who is favored by her husband and has both children, does not need to compete fiercely in the backyard and integrate into the crowd. She just wants to take the opportunity to uncover the clues of the changing court situation. As the legitimate daughter of a medical family, she was carefully raised from a young age. In the generation of Lu Yunyao, the legitimate lineage only gave birth to one daughter, and the inheritance of the Lu family's medical skills was in crisis. Lu Yunyao's father, Lu Hongji, was a family strategist and temporarily retired from Jiangnan a few years ago. The only daughter married into the Song family, and the legitimate lineage was about to be cut off. Lu Hongji did not want to adopt a collateral branch, so he could only make an agreement with Song Qinyan to adopt a son to inherit the Lu family's inheritance in the future. The Lu family has experienced countless selfish and political conspiracies in the imperial court. Although Lu Yunyao did not study medicine, her cultivation in other aspects did not fall behind. Although Song Lanxi was young, she was deeply rooted in Lu Yunyao's true story. The mother and daughter, in their interactions with the crowd, peeled off their cocoons and occasionally exchanged glances, revealing a heart-wrenching meaning in their eyes. The female side is a big show, and the male side is not to be underestimated. All kinds of fried dough sticks took turns at the table, digging holes in Song Qinyan's words from time to time. Song Qinyan was not a vegetarian either. While calmly dealing with it, he casually counterattacked, but instead left the other party dumbfounded. Seeing that Song Qinyan's moves were not empty-handed, those with deep thoughts were even more fearful in their hearts. Although everyone on the stage smiled happily, in fact, each had ulterior motives. Lord Song, your case has been successfully completed this time. The Holy Dragon's heart is overjoyed. I still need to learn more from you, brother. The Minister of Revenue raised his wine glass and offered a toast from a distance during the reign of Emperor Qin of the Song dynasty. It's extremely extreme. Lord Song has cleaned up corrupt officials and cleaned up the mess, and the Emperor has seen it all. Someone agreed. Sir Song, I would like to congratulate you first. For a moment, there was constant joy on the field. The current Song Qinyan is a great figure in front of the Emperor. After the recent separation of the court, the Emperor wanted him to drink with him. Even the Prime Minister and the Senior Minister did not receive such treatment, let alone he was just a third-rank Grand Priest. How could the Emperor treat him so differently and not make the officials jealous? Song Qinyan knew that he was too eye-catching now, but they didn't know that accompanying a ruler was like accompanying a tiger, and the Emperor's heart was not so easy to guess. The emperor always calls him as his companion, admiring dances, listening to music, drinking and having fun, but never talks about politics. The emperor is not showing any favoritism towards him. He clearly wants to use him as bait, and what he is fishing for is these restless things. Song Qinyan looked coldly at these jumping clowns jumping up and down, and sneered in his heart. As the crown prince was about to grow up, the emperor never mentioned letting him discuss politics. The crown prince is the legitimate grandson of his eldest son, and ascending to the throne is only a matter of time. They stepped forward to offer advice to the emperor, just to sell a good deal to the crown prince for their future prospects. These wine bags and rice bags, my mind is afraid that they will all be blocked by wine and meat. The crown prince is almost an adult, but the emperor is also in his prime. Moreover, when he ascended to the throne of God today, he relied on his own life to carve out a path of bloodshed. In front of him, there is no proper way to speak. Real smart people are all hiding at this moment, and now. It's not a good time to bet. Song Qinyan drank a cup of turbid wine, mocking in his heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Lake Tour. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Lake Tour. Song Lanzhang was young and intelligent, but lacked practical experience. Today, he can be considered a great eye-opener. He secretly observed and analyzed the situation in the court, summarized and sorted it out, and only sought advice from his father after returning to his residence. Although Song Lanzhou is usually reckless, she also understands that this is not a time to act recklessly. The two brothers are still underage and not good at drinking. They hold a noble demeanor at the banquet, blocking each other's temptations one by one. Song Lanzhang and his siblings were young after all, and finally managed to endure the afternoon. At this time, everyone had enough to eat and drink, and planned to go for a walk by the lake to admire the lotus. Song Lanzhou naturally has familiar little sisters in Beijing. Some of them invite Song Lanzhou to go boating on the lake and pick some lotus seeds. Although Song Lanzhou had been instructed, the thought of Lanxi, who was alone at home, made him feel unbearable. As long as you are careful and don't treat unfamiliar people more, there should be no danger. After bidding farewell to the ladies, the three little girls joined hands and boarded the small boat, playfully going deep into the lotus bushes. The small boat was not big, and only 3 or 4 people could barely sit on it. To avoid inconvenience, they only brought a girl who was familiar with water. A few people chatted and laughed, picking a lot of lotus flowers and lotus pods, with large lotus leaves on their heads for shade. The laughter and noise in the lake kept going on, and looking at it like this really gave me a bit of the fun of picking lotus in Jiangnan. Song Lanzhou also left many flower and leaf lotus pods on the boat in Lanxi, hoping to use them to please his sister when he got home. While playing happily, the daughter of the imperial censor's family suddenly screamed in surprise. "Ah! Look over there! Ah ah ah!" Several girls were instantly frightened and their faces turned pale. They exclaimed in surprise, while others who were also traveling by boat in the distance looked around in surprise, not knowing why. Song Lanzhou followed Lin Ruoyu's gaze and saw a slender water snake the size of a thumb swimming around the oar in the girl's hand. The pupils in Song Lanzhou's eyes narrowed, and her face immediately faded. The girl who punts boats, although she knows water, has never seen such a battle before. She was first startled by the screams of the ladies, and when she turned her head, she saw the water snake clinging to the oars, as if it was about to wind up along the oars in the next moment. Startled by this scene, she suddenly let go of her arms and her oars fell into the water, forgetting her reaction for a moment. Now, the ladies are even dumbfounded. The noble women, whose emotions had calmed down, suppressed their screams and watched their oars sink into the lake in order not to embarrass themselves, who had already lost their composure. Everyone looked at each other for a moment. After waiting for a while, Lin Ruoyu, who was really impatient, asked, "What should I do now?" "But what else can the other girls do?" Fortunately, they informed their mother when they came out, and when they found out they had not returned yet, they would definitely send someone out to search. As for rowing by hand, I just saw a water snake. No one dares to reach into the water. There was a servant on the ship, but the girls were not that fierce either. If she were bitten by a snake, how could she live well? It's just a pity that they can only stay here during this wonderful time. Just as a few people were at a loss, a gentle and melodious voice came to their ears. What's wrong? Song Lanxi and others looked up at the source of the sound. Deep in the shade of layers of green leaves and red flowers, a paddle protrudes, and the lotus leaves are pulled to both sides, revealing the young girl in green clothes inside. She lay on her back in the small boat, with a wide lotus leaf covering her face. Until she withdrew the oars, she casually took off the lotus leaves on her face. Ji Mingxin squinted with some sleepy eyes, lazily leaning his back against the edge of the boat and half sitting up. Ji Mingxin, who had finally found a quiet place to hide, looked around and saw the group of little noblewomen who had been chattering all along, now staring at him strangely as if they were looking at a monkey. Why haven't you spoken again? Song Lanxi and others looked at each other, waiting for someone to speak first. During this time, they still occasionally stole glances at women who were different from the noblewomen in the capital. Who is this person? You're really welcome. Every move, there is no graceful and elegant appearance of a noblewoman in Beijing. Song Lanxi was also very curious about the unfamiliar girl in front of her, but she understood in her heart that the first dilemma they needed to solve was how to return to shore. This girl, we were just taking a boat trip to the lake, but we were scared by a water snake. Fortunately, no one was injured. Song Lanxi paused for a moment before adding, however, the oar accidentally fell into the water, and now I'm afraid I won't be able to return to shore. Most noble women, upon hearing this, have already understood its meaning and either offer to help or politely refuse after explaining their inconvenience. However, Ji Mingxin did not take up this conversation at all. Seeing that Ji Mingxin had no intention of excluding them, Song Lanxi had no choice but to ask for help directly. We have lost our oars and are trapped here. Would the girl be willing to help us out? Ji Mingxin glanced lightly at the other side. So how do you want me to help you? Let's talk about it first. I won't send you back. It doesn't matter if you don't give it away, just borrow a pulp. Song Lanxi thought this way, and her gaze shifted to the boat that the girl was leaning on, only to find a lonely oar. Song Lanxi is in a difficult situation, this. We can't just leave them here just to ensure they can go back smoothly. The other girls also had the same idea, frowning and looking at each other, and one of them couldn't help but complain in a low voice. Why can't we go back together? Anyway, we have to go ashore. Can she still stay here for a lifetime? Song Lanxi shook her head and said, helping is love, not helping is duty. How could they still be picky? This girl clearly came out to avoid the noisy crowd, and it is reasonable that she is unwilling to return to the shore. It's just that, it's not possible to ask her to come back to the shore and ask for help. Ji Mingxin looked at the people across from him with a funny expression. As for being so distressed. Want this? She raised the paddleboard with one hand. Keep going. Ji Mingxin curled up the corner of his mouth and unexpectedly threw it forward. Ah, the girls were startled. Everyone only had time to see her wave her hand holding the oar, and the soaked wooden board in her hand felt like nothing, lightly falling into the gap between the few people's boats. If she doesn't throw it right, this oar will hit them on the head. Song Lanxi raised her hand and gently comforted the frightened little heart from an unnoticed angle before thanking her. Lanxi thanked the girl for her help. I don't know the girl's name, but one day Lanxi will come to the door to thank you. Several girls were reminded and expressed gratitude to Ji Mingxin by reporting their family background. It's a small matter, go back quickly. Ji Mingxin waved her hand and lay back in her original place, indifferent. Lotus leaf covered her head and face again, obviously not wanting to say much. The girls looked at each other silently, and could only thank each other again, rowing their oars and leaving. The lotus flowers and leaves scattered behind gathered once again, and the girl in green clothes perfectly integrated into it, as if she had never appeared in front of them before. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Lotus Demon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Lotus Demon. I think I might know who she is now. The daughter of the imperial historian was thoughtful, and told the girls her guess. She should be the daughter of a southern general who has just entered Beijing. It seems like her name is Ji Mingxin. Her father is an imperial censor and occasionally talks about court affairs at home. A few days ago, she heard of it. She turned out to be the daughter of a warrior, no wonder her behavior. Song Lanxi glances at the little sisters who hesitates. Looking at the newly borrowed oar, her mind couldn't help but imagine the graceful appearance of the young girl, and she immediately corrected her name without hesitation. I think she is very unique. Although she is a bit unrestrained, she gives people a sense of openness and freedom. It seems that she is much more unrestrained than us. Who wouldn't want to be the most carefree person? They just can't turn a blind eye to the eyes and ridicule of the world, so they will only envy and admire people like Ji Mingxin even more. While feeling melancholy, Song Lanxi vaguely heard her elder brother's gentle voice. She turned back in confusion, suspecting that it was her own illusion. Sure. The person called out lightly again. The overlapping lotus leaves were lifted slightly this time, revealing a small boat heading towards them. The young man wearing an indigo brocade robe on the ship is undoubtedly his elder brother Song Lanzhang. Big brother. Why did you come? Song Lanxi was surprised. Big brother seemed to be looking for her. What happened? The distance between the two small boats gradually narrowed, and Song Lanxi was not the only one on board the noblewomen's boats. Due to male and female defense, Song Lanzhang did not get too close. I'm here to find you. Song Lanzhang was really afraid of hearing any bad news from her, so he couldn't wait to take action and boarded the boat to search for her. A noblewoman returned to the shore and said she had heard your exclamation. I was greeting my mother at that time and came to find you on the way. As for how worried and anxious he and his mother were when they heard the news, there was no need to say anything about listening to her. He couldn't have guessed it without saying that Song Lanxi felt very guilty in his heart. We had nothing to do, it was just that the oar accidentally fell into the water, and in a moment of panic, we just lost our composure. Thinking of Ji Mingxin, who was still deep in the lotus root, Song Lanxi wanted to go back and pick her up when he saw his elder brother. After we lost our oars, it was Miss Ji who lent her oars. Now that she is staying in place, why don't I go back and return the oars to her? No need, my mother and all the ladies are waiting for you. You can go ashore first, and I will send the oars. Song Lanzhang only wants his second sister to come ashore earlier. In that case, Song Lanxi also wanted to go back early to comfort her mother, so she nodded and agreed. Song Lanzhang exchanged his servants with the maids on their boat, explained a few words, and then followed the maid's guidance to leave. The Lake Lotus was carefully taken care of by the flower slave, thriving and lush. The maid rowed carefully at the stern of the boat, and the small boat struggled to navigate through it. Song Lanzhang was occasionally scratched by lotus stems with small thorns and hooks, and soon his hands and feet were slow and messy, even his hair tied up was accidentally hooked. The hair in front of the forehead swayed slightly with the boat, drifting on Song Lanzhang's handsome face, as if passionate yet heartless. Song Lanzhang was planning to take shelter in the cabin when the bow of the ship accidentally hit a hard object, making a dull sound. He quickly held onto the edge of the boat, so that he could hang one end and sink into the lake. After stabilizing his feet, he looked up and saw that the sharp corner of the bow of the ship was pressing against a patch of blue clothes. Green clothes, clear water, green leaves. In this green world, the owner of Iran lying on the small boat seemed to be sleeping directly on the water. Like a demon, like an immortal. The girl lay slightly on her side, with lotus leaves covering her face. The small boat was hit and collided, and after several reluctant moments of wandering, the lotus leaves finally slipped off, revealing the delicate and fair skin and facial features beneath. Looking at it from afar, it feels like a newly born lotus demon in the lotus lake. The lotus leaves slid down, and the woman's closed eyes seemed to be stimulated by a sudden light. After her eyelashes trembled slightly, she slowly opened them. The lotus demon, who used to rest comfortably in the lake, was eventually disturbed by the intrusion of outsiders, disrupting her sleep. At this moment, Song Lanzhang was subjected to an unprecedented visual impact. After he woke up, he panicked and turned his head to look beside him. His expression was serious, but if he looked closer, he could see that his eyes were actually unfocused. "Does it look good?" Ji Mingxin had already noticed the arrival of someone, but was too lazy to pay attention. She did not feel any lewdness or offense in people's eyes, and she did not reject this pure amazement and appreciation. Song Lanzhang only saw her as mocking his impoliteness, and her face burned like fire for a moment. "Is that Miss Ji ahead?" "I'm Song Lanzhang. Thank you very much for your help to my sister." Lanzhang is extremely grateful. Song Lanzhang arched his hand to thank him, his eyes also filled with embarrassment. "Just now, please forgive my rudeness, miss. I mean, it's impolite of me, girl. Don't be angry." As Song Lanzhang spoke, he suddenly wanted to bite off his tongue of nonsense. He didn't know why he was so clumsy today. Although she offended others herself, she made them not mind getting angry, as if implying her narrow-minded. The handsome young master with a disheveled appearance in front of him was frowning in frustration, and Ji Mingxin interrupted his entanglement with a light smile. "I didn't take it to heart, and besides, to be honest, I'm glad to be genuinely praised." Although he is often praised by his elders and admired by his peers, he is still a young boy now, and I really don't know how to deal with it. Knowing that these nobles have thin skin, Ji Mingxin didn't feel embarrassed. "Are you here just to say thank you specifically?" Without continuing the original topic, Song Lanzhang breathed a sigh of relief. He gradually calmed down as he returned to business, and the thin blush on his face quickly dissipated. The girl was kind-hearted and lent her only oar to her younger sister. "Now that it's getting late, it's not appropriate to stay on the lake. Lanzhang came here to send the oar to the girl." Ji Mingxin followed his words and looked up at the sky. At this moment, the sun was warm and the lake occasionally had a gentle breeze, indicating that it was a comfortable time. However, this village is far away in the suburbs of Beijing and needs to leave early to rush into the city gate in time. The banquet is about to end, and she really doesn't want to continue to stay at her estate. So, it's not wrong for him to say that it's getting late. Seeing her nod, Song Lanzhang handed over the oars. Ji Mingxin missed the call and stood up, then jumped lightly and landed on his boat. "This." Song Lanzhang was about to say something when he was interrupted by Ji Mingxin. "There's nothing like this or this, I'm lying a bit lazy and don't want to row." She pointed to the girl at the stern, who was silent and lowered her head, and said, "I'm not even afraid of what you're afraid of. Besides, there's still someone around." Song Lanzhang immediately shut up. He finally realized that he had no way in front of this girl. The two sat at the bow of the boat, watching the scenery recede in front of them. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Story. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Story. The air carries the fragrance of lotus leaves that have been suffocated by the sun. Even when swept away by the cool breeze, it doesn't feel smoked. Occasionally, lotus flowers pass by, and a strand of lotus fragrance can be caught in it. The two unconsciously relaxed and immersed themselves in this picturesque scenery. The atmosphere was just right, and Ji Mingxin propped up her chin and glanced at Song Lanzhang, who was also stretching his eyebrows and eyes, and suddenly started chatting. "Why didn't you argue with me just now? Your temper is a bit too gentle." Song Lanzhang chuckled. I'm not a good-tempered person, I just can't say it, so I don't want to embarrass myself. Seeing many young masters who suffer from the consequences of losing face, Ji Mingyue's frankness towards him is somewhat novel. You don't have to be humble. She also has self-awareness. I have always only loved dancing with knives and guns, and I don't read much. How could you say that you can't match me? Song Lanzhang shook his head and said, reading can also be called reading stories. No matter how much you read, you are only observing the lives of others. This experience is not that experience. He has always known that when his teacher evaluates his article, the called lack of practical experience is just a euphemism that he is currently only good at talking on paper. Following the footsteps of our predecessors' footsteps can be a shortcut, but can one continue to take shortcuts throughout one's life? He looked back with an indifferent smile and said, of course, books should be read, but reading alone is absolutely impossible. Ji Mingxi nodded, wondering whether the capital was a gathering place for talented people from all over the world. If you have such insight, there will definitely be something that belongs to you in the future. Just keep your original intention. Song Lanzhang was taken aback for a moment. This was the first time he had received praise from someone he didn't know and had no connections with. This was more inspiring and exciting than the praise of someone close to him. His eyebrows and eyes relaxed, and he couldn't help but burst into a brilliant smile, bowing respectfully to the person in front of him. Lanzhang, thank you very much for your kind words, Mississippi. Ji Mingxin accepted this gift because it was his respect. Sure enough, Song Lanzhang was very satisfied with this, and his already shining eyes were shining brightly at this moment. She had to admit that this gentleman, who was polite and courteous, looked somewhat scholarly. Ji Mingxin glanced at Song Lanzhang's radiant and handsome face, then turned her head to continue admiring the Lotus scenery. Even his appearance seems much more pleasing to the eye than those rough men in the military. Leaving the dense Lotus thicket, the speed of the small boat suddenly increased. Seeing separation approaching, Song Lanzhang endured and finally asked the name of the girl in front of him. Ji Mingxin laughed and saw his entanglement in his eyes, deliberately teasing him. Didn't your sister tell you? This is not all lies, one of those girls clearly recognized her. Miss, if you find it inconvenient, don't pay attention to me. Meeting by chance is also fate. This brief trip to Lotus Lake may be their only encounter in this lifetime, and he still wants to hear her personally introduce his name. Song Lanzhang looked straight at the lake shore, and the people on the shore were looking at their ships from a distance, not knowing what they were saying. Just as he thought that this would inevitably leave some regrets, a gentle voice suddenly rang out in his ear, Ji Mingxin. He suddenly turned his head to his side, looking somewhat stunned. Ji Mingxin chuckled lightly and, seeing that he had increased her expectations for the capital, told him why not. Didn't you say that reading is like reading a story? I'm not a storyteller, but I can tell stories. If there's any future, I'll tell you a story. The girl's gaze was burning as she watched him make a promise, with a smile like a flower, exuding a wild and unrestrained demeanor. Ji Mingxin. He silently recited in his heart over and over again. It seems that from that moment on, Song Lanzhang felt that he had suddenly become somewhat different. He couldn't say where the difference was, but he knew that his chest had already been pounding with excitement. Pup pee 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 pee, with each sound, he was stunned and lost in thought. He arched his hand and bowed again with dignity. Lanzhang is willing to meet the girl again in the future. Ji Mingxin laughed heartily at his serious demeanor. What a strange young master who is both smart and foolish. Upon landing, Song Lanzhang was immediately surrounded by his long-awaited family. Big brother, you have finally returned. If you want to send the oars, just send someone to send them. Why do you need to go in person? Song Lanzhou had the most urgent temperament and started complaining before he could get close. Lu Yunyao's gaze examined him up and down, confirming that there was nothing wrong with him except for his hair being slightly tangled, before releasing the hand tightly gripping Song Lanzhang. Song Lanzhang quickly comforted his family and only found the opportunity to introduce Ji Mingxin, whom he had just met, after knowing that they were all relieved. "Dad, Mom, this is what I just..." He turned his head and was about to lead Ji Mingxin to his parents, but he saw that there was no trace of the beautiful woman around him. After a pause, he cleverly changed his tone. "This is the ship I just boarded. Look at it, it's brand new as before. What can I do? Don't worry about the child anymore." Lu Yunyao didn't remember the other girl on the boat for a moment. Upon hearing this, she nodded. Only Song Lanxi, who had dealt with Ji Mingxin, still asked strangely. "Big brother, did you come back with Miss Ji? Where is she?" Song Lanzhang paused, then smiled and shook his head. "After all, I am an extramarital, so it's normal for me not to always be with me. Maybe I went to see her parents after getting off the ship. Is that right?" "I think so." Song Lanxi was convinced by this reason, although she vaguely felt that she didn't seem like someone who would care about such small matters. After the banquet, the Song family got on the carriage and followed the grand convoy back to the capital. When they arrived at the Song mansion, the sky was already dark. Lanxi has been waiting at home for a whole day, and the servants at home only take care of what she can't do. She is not interested in going sightseeing anymore, and she is so idle that she almost grows hair. After dinner, the family hadn't returned yet. Lanxi was lying on the couch, frowning and about to ask Bai Shui to go to the door again. Yutong quickly walked over to her side to report the good news. "Miss, just now the gatekeeper handed over the message. The master and his wife have already arrived at the door." "Really? Then let's go over quickly." "No, just go to the main courtyard and wait for them." Lanxi was overjoyed and quickly climbed down from the bed. Bai Shui quickly put on embroidered shoes for her, and Lanxi put them on and kicked them on the ground. After making sure that her feet and embroidered shoes fit perfectly, she ran towards the door. Today, Lanxi stayed at home all day, and although she received the lotus and lotus seeds specially picked by her second sister, she still felt a bit unhappy. Out of guilt or compensation, when she suggested going out to play tomorrow, Lu Yunyao did not strongly oppose it and only made a pact with her. "You promise not to leave our sight after going, you can go wherever you are asked, otherwise, you will die of this heart." End of this chapter.